I'm Iola, a 27-year-old financial analyst from Boston. Since I was a kid, I dreamed of owning a classic 1967 Mustang convertible. My parents helped me save for years, promising to match what I earned. After countless part-time jobs through high school, I finally bought my dream car. Then one day, without asking, my parents sold it to fund my sister Natalie's college tuition. What they didn't know was that I never forget a debt. If you've ever had something precious taken from you, drop a like and subscribe to see how I made sure justice was served in the most unexpected way. Growing up in a middle-class neighborhood in Boston, I always felt a special connection to classic cars. This wasn't typical for most girls my age, but my passion wasn't random. My grandfather was the one who sparked this love in me. Every weekend I would visit him in his garage, where he restored beautiful classic cars to their former glory. The smell of motor oil and leather polish became my favorite scent by the time I was 8 years old. "One day, Iola," my grandfather would say, while showing me how to polish chrome without leaving streaks, "all these tools will be yours, and you'll create something beautiful with them." The hours I spent with him learning about engines' bodywork and the history of American automotive design were the happiest of my childhood. He never treated me like I couldn't understand something because I was a girl. He simply explained things clearly and patiently until I got it. When I turned 12, everything changed. My grandfather passed away unexpectedly from a heart attack. Among the many things I inherited from him were his complete set of restoration tools, dozens of car magazines dating back to the 1950s, and most importantly, his knowledge and passion. The summer after he died, my parents took me to a classic car show downtown to cheer me up. That's when I saw it for the first time, a cherry red 1970 Mustang convertible. The sleek lines, the immaculate detailing, the purr of the engine when the owner started it up. In that moment, I knew exactly what I wanted more than anything else in the world. "That's going to be mine someday," I told my parents, pointing to the Mustang. My dad laughed gently. "Those don't come cheap, sweetheart. That's a $15,000 car at least." I remember the determination solidifying inside me. "Then I'll save up for it." Something in my expression must have convinced my parents I was serious, because later that night they made me a promise that would shape the next 4 years of my life. "If you can save up $7,500, my mom said, "we'll match it and help you find a good Mustang." From that moment on, every decision I made revolved around earning and saving money. I started babysitting for neighbors when I was 13. At 14, I added lawn mowing and yard work to my services. By 15, I had a weekend job at the local diner, working as many hours as they would legally let me. My friends went to movies and bought new clothes. I put every dollar I earned into my Mustang fund. My money management became so meticulous that my dad joked I should become an accountant. Little did he know how prophetic those words would be. While saving money, I also educated myself. I read every book and magazine about Mustangs I could find. I learned about the common problems with different years and models. I studied restoration techniques and parts availability. By the time I was 16, I could tell you the difference between a 1967 and a 1968 Mustang from 50 feet away, just by looking at the side scoops and grille. The day I hit my $7,500 goal, I burst into tears. 4 years of sacrifice and hard work had paid off. True to their word, my parents matched my savings, and together we started the search for my dream car. We found it 3 months later. It wasn't perfect. The paint had faded in some spots, the interior needed reupholstering, and the engine occasionally made a concerning ticking noise. But it was a genuine 1967 Mustang convertible in the exact shade of cherry red I had fallen in love with. The owner was an elderly man whose arthritis prevented him from working on it anymore. When he heard about my plans to restore it with my grandfather's tools, he knocked $1,000 off the asking price. "This car deserves someone who loves it," he told me as he handed over the keys. The day we brought it home was the proudest day of my 17 years of life. I parked it in our garage, already planning the restoration projects I would tackle first. The leather seats needed conditioning. The chrome bumper had a small dent I knew I could fix. The engine needed a thorough tune-up. This wasn't just a car to me. It represented everything my grandfather had taught me about patience, craftsmanship, and the satisfaction of bringing something beautiful back to life. Every time I touched it, I felt connected to him again. "Grandpa would be so proud of you," my mom said, as I carefully organized my tools beside the car. I believed her, and I believed that the next few years of my life would be defined by the gradual, loving restoration of my dream car. I had no idea that in just a few weeks, that dream would be stolen from me by the people I trusted most. The summer before my senior year of high school, I was accepted into a prestigious 2-week academic program at Boston University. It was an incredible opportunity for someone interested in business and finance, and my guidance counselor said it would look great on my college applications. Although I was reluctant to leave my Mustang sitting idle for 2 whole weeks, I knew this was important for my future. "Don't worry," my dad assured me as he drove me to the university campus. "Your car will be right where you left it when you get back. Then you'll have the rest of the summer to work on it." I spent those 2 weeks learning about investment strategies, market analysis, and corporate finance. Despite missing my car, I threw myself into the program, earning a certificate of excellence and a glowing recommendation from the professor. I couldn't wait to get home and tell my parents about everything I'd learned, then get back to working on my Mustang. Dad picked me up on the final day of the program. I noticed he seemed unusually quiet during the drive home, but I attributed it to fatigue. It wasn't until we pulled into our driveway and I ran to the garage that my world collapsed around me. The garage door opened to reveal an empty space where my Mustang should have been. "Dad," my voice cracked with panic. "Where's my car? Did you move it?" The look on his face told me everything before he even spoke. "Iola, we need to have a family meeting." In our living room, my parents sat me down while my younger sister Natalie hovered nervously in the doorway. Mom's eyes were red from crying. "We sold your car," Dad finally said, his voice flat. The words didn't make sense at first. They sold my car, the car I had saved 4 years for, the car they had helped me buy, the car that connected me to my grandfather. "Why would you do that?" I whispered, my chest tightening. Mom reached for my hand, but I pulled away. "Your sister got accepted to Princeton," she explained. "The financial aid package wasn't what we expected. We needed to come up with $20,000 for her first-year tuition, or she wouldn't be able to go." I looked at Natalie, who was examining her fingernails, seemingly bored by the conversation that was shattering my heart. "You sold my car without even asking me." The betrayal cut deeper than the loss itself. "How could you do that?" "We're your parents," Dad said firmly. "Sometimes difficult decisions need to be made for the good of the family. Natalie's education has to come first right now." "What about my property? My dream, the promise you made me?" "We'll make it up to you someday," Mom said through tears. "We promise." But their promises meant nothing to me anymore. They had proven that. The worst part was that Natalie didn't even acknowledge the sacrifice that had been made for her. Not a thank you, not a word of appreciation, nothing. I walked out of that living room a different person than I had been just minutes before. The powerlessness and injustice of what had happened changed something fundamental in me. I didn't scream or throw things. Instead, I went silent, retreating into myself with a cold, calculating anger that would eventually shape my future actions. That night, lying in bed, I made 2 promises to myself. First, I would never again be financially dependent on anyone, and second, one day, I would make them understand exactly what they had taken from me. My senior year of high school was a blur of academics and work. I applied to several colleges, including some prestigious private universities, where I received acceptance letters. But the experience with my car had taught me an invaluable lesson about financial independence. Instead of following Natalie to an expensive private school, I chose to attend the University of Massachusetts on a partial scholarship where I could study finance without accumulating massive debt. My parents seemed surprised by my decision. "But you got into Northwestern," my mom argued. "That's a better school than UMass." "I can't afford Northwestern," I replied coldly. And I won't ask for help from people who don't respect my property. The look of hurt on her face gave me a small, bitter satisfaction. Throughout college, I worked multiple jobs. During the school year, I worked at the campus library and did tutoring for business math classes. During summers and breaks, I picked up retail positions and internships that provided valuable experience. By my sophomore year, I was completely financially independent from my parents paying for everything from my tuition balance to my cell phone bill. Meanwhile, Natalie was living the high life at Princeton. Her social media was filled with photos of sorority parties, spring break trips to Cancun, and shopping sprees in New York City. She seemed to have an endless supply of new clothes, electronics, and experiences, all funded by my parents and indirectly by the sale of my car. One post particularly stuck in my memory. Natalie posing beside a rented convertible in Florida during spring break, caption reading, "Cruising in style." The irony was like salt in an open wound. During a Thanksgiving break visit home, I overheard my parents discussing finances in hushed tones. "We can't keep sending her so much extra money," my dad whispered. "The tuition is already stretching us thin." "But she says everyone in her sorority is going on this ski trip," Mom replied. "I don't want her to feel left out." I wondered if they had ever worried about me feeling left out when they sold my car without my consent. These revelations only strengthened my resolve. I doubled down on my finance studies, becoming obsessed with understanding the true value of what had been taken from me. I tracked the appreciation of classic Mustangs like mine in various markets. I calculated compound interest on the initial investment. I even assigned a dollar value to the emotional damage and lost experiences. According to my calculations, the debt my family owed me grew every single day, and I remembered every cent. By the time I graduated with honors in finance, I had already secured a position at a respected financial firm in Boston. Natalie, on the other hand, barely scraped through with a degree in communications and was struggling to find employment. At my graduation dinner, my father raised a toast. "To Iola, who has shown incredible independence and determination. We're so proud of you." I smiled tightly and raised my glass, but inside I was thinking, you have no idea how determined I can be. The debt remained unpaid, but I was playing the long game, and I never ever forgot. 3 years after my own graduation, I found myself seated at another celebration dinner, this time for Natalie's college graduation. Despite my complicated feelings toward my family, I maintained a cordial relationship with them. I showed up for important events, made appropriate small talk, and never brought up the car. But I never forgot. The dinner started pleasantly enough. We were at an upscale restaurant downtown, my parents beaming with pride over Natalie finally completing her degree after an extended 5-year plan. I had been promoted twice at my firm by this point, while Natalie was still unsure about her career path. "I have an announcement to make," Natalie said as we finished our main courses. She flashed her practiced smile around the table. "I've decided to apply to graduate schools for a master's in media studies." My mother clapped her hands together. "That's wonderful, honey. Columbia and NYU have the best programs." Natalie continued scrolling through her phone to show us websites. "Tuition is about $60,000 per year, but with living expenses in New York, we're probably looking at close to $90,000 annually." The casual way she said, "we're looking at," made my blood boil. After all these years, she still expected our parents to foot the bill for her choices. I watched my father's face carefully. For the first time, I saw something other than indulgence when he looked at Natalie. He cleared his throat uncomfortably. That's a lot of money, Natalie. Your mother and I are thinking about retirement now. We've already put a lot into your undergraduate education." Natalie's expression shifted from excitement to disbelief. "But you always said education was the most important investment." "It is," my mother jumped in. "But there are limits to what we can do. Maybe look into scholarships or financial aid." Natalie scoffed. "Financial aid. Do you know how competitive these programs are? Everyone applies for financial aid." The tension at the table was thickening. I remained silent, watching this unfold with a strange detachment. "Maybe work for a year or two first," my father suggested. Save up some money, gain some experience. That's when Natalie said the words that would finally break my years of silence. "Why don't you just sell something else like you did for my undergrad?" she said flippantly. "That worked out fine last time." The table went completely silent. My parents exchanged alarmed glances. In that moment, I realized the truth Natalie had known about my car all along. She had known exactly where her tuition money came from. She had known about my sacrifice and had never acknowledged it, not once in 7 years. "What did you just say?" My voice was deadly quiet. Natalie looked confused by my reaction. "What I'm just saying, they figured it out before. That old car or whatever." "That old car." I repeated, my composure finally shattering. I pulled out my phone, opened a spreadsheet I had maintained for years, and slid it across the table. That old car was a 1967 Mustang convertible that would now be worth $32,000 in restored condition. Add in 7 years of compound interest at market rates, plus the emotional value of the only connection I had to my grandfather, and we're looking at a debt of $47,836. My parents looked stunned. Natalie rolled her eyes. "Are you serious right now? It was just a stupid car." Something in me snapped. 7 years of suppressed rage came pouring out. That stupid car was the only thing I ever asked for. I worked for 4 years to save for it. I had plans for that car. It was mine. You had no right to take it from me to fund your pathetic excuse for an education that you clearly didn't even appreciate. "Iola, please," my mother pleaded. "We thought we were doing what was best for the family." "No," I said, standing up. "You did what was easiest for you. You taught me that in this family, my property, my feelings, and my consent mean nothing. Well, I've learned that lesson well. And now you're all going to learn that every cent of that debt will be repaid." I walked out of the restaurant, leaving them in shocked silence. For weeks afterward, I received pleading texts and calls from my parents, but I maintained my distance. I wasn't interested in their excuses anymore. I was only interested in justice. 2 months after the explosive dinner, I received news that energized my resolve even further. Through the company grapevine, I learned that Natalie had been hired at the same financial firm where I worked. Not in my department, thankfully, but in the marketing division. The position hadn't even been publicly advertised, which could only mean one thing: my father had called in a favor from his old college roommate, who happened to be a senior vice president. Once again, Natalie was benefiting from special treatment while I had earned everything through hard work and merit. But this time, I saw it not as an insult, but as an opportunity. Over the next few weeks, I developed a comprehensive strategic plan. This wasn't about petty revenge. This was about financial justice with interest compounded over years of emotional damage. My first move was to befriend Lisa, the head of Natalie's department. Under the guise of cross-departmental collaboration, I started having lunch with her regularly. I was careful never to speak negatively about Natalie directly, but I did ask innocent questions about the marketing team's performance metrics and expectations. "Your new hire, my sister Natalie, how's she adjusting?" I would ask casually. Lisa would sigh. "She has potential, but her attention to detail needs work, and she's missed 2 deadlines already." I nodded sympathetically while mentally filing away this information. At the same time, I took several junior staff members under my wing, including 2 in the marketing department. I offered to help them with their financial models, gave them tips on impressing senior management, and generally positioned myself as a mentor. These relationships gave me valuable insights into Natalie's workplace behavior and performance. Natalie took a 2-hour lunch again today, one of them mentioned during a coffee break. Lisa was looking for her to review the quarterly presentation, but no one could find her. I simply nodded and changed the subject, but each piece of information was another note in my growing file. Using my financial expertise, I calculated an exact repayment plan for Natalie. I factored in the original value of the Mustang, the appreciation it would have accrued, the lost opportunity cost, and a reasonable interest rate. The final figure came to just under $50,000, which I broke down into manageable monthly payments over 5 years. The most important phase of my plan came when our company announced it was revamping its performance evaluation system. I volunteered to join the committee developing the new criteria. It was perfect timing. We need objective, measurable standards, I argued in committee meetings. Concrete metrics, like meeting deadlines, project completion rates, and client satisfaction scores. My suggestions were well received. After all, who could argue against objectivity and accountability? The new system I helped design wasn't unfair in the slightest. It simply removed the subjective elements that often protected underperforming employees who were well-liked or well-connected. When the new evaluation system was implemented, Natalie quickly found herself in trouble. Her casual approach to deadlines, her extended lunch breaks, and her mediocre work product were all exposed under the harsh light of objective measurement. Within 3 months, she was placed on a performance improvement plan. It was time for the final phase of my strategy. I invited Natalie for coffee after work one day. She looked surprised, but agreed, probably hoping to leverage our relationship somehow. "I hear you're having some troubles at work," I began once we were seated. She sighed dramatically. "The new evaluation system is ridiculous. Nobody can meet those expectations." "Actually," I said calmly, 87% of employees are meeting or exceeding the new standards. The system was designed to be challenging but achievable for anyone willing to put in consistent effort. Her eyes narrowed. "Did you have something to do with this?" I took a sip of my coffee before answering. "I helped design the new evaluation criteria, yes. But nothing about it is unfair. It simply rewards merit and penalizes entitlement." "This is about the car, isn't it?" she hissed. "You're trying to get me fired." "No, Natalie. I'm not trying to get you fired. I'm giving you a choice." I slid a folder across the table. "This is a repayment agreement for $49,836, representing the full value of what was taken from me 7 years ago, plus appropriate interest. You can sign this and begin monthly payments, or you can continue to struggle under a fair but rigorous evaluation system that you're clearly not prepared to meet." "That's blackmail," she protested. "It's accountability," I corrected, "for perhaps the first time in your life. The system isn't rigged against you, Natalie. It's just not rigged for you anymore." She stared at the document, her face cycling through shock, anger, and finally defeat. "I can't afford these payments," she whispered. "You can if you budget properly. Cut back on the designer clothes, the weekend trips, the daily $60 brunches. Live within your means. It's what most adults do." The look she gave me was venomous, but beneath the anger, I saw something else: respect. Perhaps for the first time, she was seeing me not as her boring, responsible older sister, but as someone who had calculated and executed a flawless, long-term strategy. "I'll think about it," she said, taking the folder. 3 days later, the signed agreement appeared in my mailbox. Justice, it seemed, was finally being served. The monthly transfers from Natalie's account began arriving like clockwork. Each payment represented not just money, but a small piece of justice being restored. I used the first payment to purchase parts for a new car restoration project I had started, bringing my journey full circle. Natalie had to make significant lifestyle changes to accommodate the payments. She moved from her luxury downtown apartment to a shared flat in a less fashionable neighborhood. Her social media posts about expensive restaurants and weekend getaways were replaced by home-cooked meal photos and free local events. For once in her life, she was living within her means. The arrangement remained our secret until Thanksgiving, when the whole family gathered at my parents' house. I had maintained a distant but civil relationship with them, attending major holidays, but keeping conversations superficial. During dinner, my father asked Natalie about her new apartment, clearly concerned about the downgrade. "It's fine," she said shortly. "I'm on a strict budget these days." "Budget while you're making good money at the firm," my mother said. Natalie glanced at me, then back at her plate. "I have a significant monthly expense." "What expense?" my father pressed. The silence stretched uncomfortably until Natalie finally spoke. "I'm repaying Iola for the car you sold." My parents looked at me in shock. "You're making her pay for that?" my mother gasped. That was our decision, not hers. A decision you made about my property, I reminded her calmly. And she benefited from it without ever acknowledging the sacrifice. Now she's learning about accountability. This is cruel, my father said, his face flushed with anger. We're family. Families help each other. Yes, they do, I agreed. But they also respect each other's autonomy and property. You taught me the opposite lesson, and I've had to teach myself a different one. I pulled out my phone and showed them the spreadsheet detailing exactly how I had calculated the debt. This isn't arbitrary or emotional. This is financial justice calculated to the penny. My father studied the figures, his expression changing from anger to something more complex. He was, after all, a businessman who understood numbers. He could see the logic even if he didn't like it. We made a mistake, he finally said, his voice breaking. We should never have sold your car without your permission. I see that now. But this seems so cold. Colder than selling something precious to me without even asking, colder than dismissing my feelings for years afterward, I asked quietly. My mother tried another approach. We'll pay it. We'll give you the money instead of Natalie. She shouldn't have to pay for our mistake. No, I said firmly. This is between Natalie and me now. She agreed to the terms. And for perhaps the first time, she's learning that actions have consequences. What happened next surprised all of us. Natalie cleared her throat and said, Mom, Dad, stop. Iola's right. I knew where the money for my tuition came from. I knew it was her car, and I never even thanked her. I deserved this wake-up call. The sincerity in her voice was something I had never heard before. For the first time in our adult lives, she was taking responsibility instead of making excuses. Later that evening, as I was preparing to leave, Natalie caught me alone in the hallway. I want you to know, she said hesitantly, that I get it now. I get why you did this. And I'm sorry. Not just about the car, but about everything. The way I took things for granted. The way I never acknowledged your sacrifice. I searched her face for signs of manipulation, but found only genuine remorse. Thank you for saying that. I replied, not quite ready to fully forgive, but appreciating the first step. As I drove home that night, I felt something shift inside me. The cold anger that had fueled me for years was beginning to thaw, replaced by something more complex, but ultimately healthier. I wasn't just reclaiming financial justice, I was reclaiming my own sense of worth. 2 years after Natalie began repaying her debt, I received the final transfer. The account was officially settled. The notification pinged on my phone while I was in my apartment garage working on my newest project, a 1965 Mustang convertible that I had found in terrible condition but with good bones. It wasn't identical to my original car, but the restoration process had become a form of therapy for me. Each part I fixed or replaced helped heal something inside me that had been broken the day I discovered my car missing. I was just finishing up for the day when there was a knock at the garage door. I opened it to find Natalie standing there holding a dusty old photo album. Last payment went through, she said. I'm officially debt-free. I nodded. Account settled in full. She hesitated, then held out the album. I found this in Mom and Dad's attic last week. Thought you might want to see it. Curious. I opened the album to find dozens of photos I had never seen before, my grandfather standing proudly next to various restoration projects through the years. And there, in the middle pages, was a photo of him with a cherry-red 1967 Mustang convertible, virtually identical to the one I had owned. Did you know Grandpa had the same car? Natalie asked quietly. I shook my head, my throat suddenly tight. No, I never knew. Mom said he sold it to help pay for Dad's college tuition. History repeating itself, I guess. The irony wasn't lost on me. I invited her in, and for the first time in years, we had a real conversation. Not about the debt or the past, but about our current lives and cautious hopes for the future. Natalie had changed dramatically over the past 2 years. The entitled attitude had been replaced by a work ethic I wouldn't have thought possible. She had earned a legitimate promotion on her own merits. She lived simply but seemed happier than when she had all the expensive trappings. The funny thing is, she admitted, I'm actually grateful for what you did. It woke me up. I like the person I'm becoming a lot better than who I was before. My relationship with our parents had been slowly healing too. They had stopped trying to buy back my affection with gifts or money. Instead, they showed respect for my boundaries and genuine interest in my life. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. The hardest lesson I had learned through all of this was that standing up for yourself isn't selfish. For years, I had been made to feel that my desires and property were less important than Natalie's needs. Breaking free from that dynamic hadn't been easy. I had missed family events, endured angry phone calls, and been called selfish and vindictive. But I had held firm, refusing to attend family gatherings until genuine apologies were made, refusing to pretend everything was fine when it wasn't, refusing to value family harmony above personal integrity. When I found my current Mustang project car, it was a rusted shell of its former glory, much like my sense of justice had been. The process of rebuilding the car became symbolic of rebuilding my self-respect. Every weekend spent replacing corroded parts or refinishing surfaces was an investment in reclaiming what had been taken from me. What I've come to understand is that some debts can be repaid with money, but respect and trust require much more. The financial debt has been settled, but the emotional accounting is more complex. Forgiveness became possible only after accountability was established. As I turned the key in my rebuilt Mustang's ignition, I realized that reclaiming your worth is the most valuable restoration project of all. What parts of yourself have you had to rebuild after someone tried to take them away? Drop a comment below and let me know if you've ever had to stand your ground even when it meant family conflict. Don't forget to like and subscribe if this story resonated with you, and share it with someone who might need to hear that standing up for yourself isn't selfish, it's necessary. Thank you for listening to my journey from betrayal to justice. Remember, the most important restoration project is always the one that rebuilds your self-respect.